just might come up a little later, and I'll let you know when it does. But in the meantime, I'll tell you a little bit more about these buses. So they were originally designed back in 1979 and originally debuted in 1981. And in the years since, only 24 of these buses have ever been manufactured. So they were made by a company right here in Alberta called Foremost. And Foremost only ever manufactured 24, but there has been one that's been entirely retired since then. And so we consider ourselves, or we have seen it rather, there are 23 still active in the world today. We have 21, and there are two rather, that are stationed in Antarctica, being used as part of scientific research projects there on behalf of the American and Australian governments respectively. Now, that being said, like I mentioned, these are relatively rare buses, and so with there only being 23 of them in the world, that makes them more rare than NASA rocket ships. Maybe a little bit less cool, but debatable at best. So as we round the bend here, you will see where we are taking one of those rare buses, this ice explorer here. We are heading over to the Athabasca Glacier, and you can see where some of my compatriots are parked there on the glacier. Now, we are not heading to the Columbia ice field itself, but the Athabasca Glacier. And this is a bit of a misconception, so there is a bit of a difference. The glacier is fed by the ice field, much like a river, for example, is fed by a larger body of water like a lake. So you can think of the Columbia ice field like a very large frozen lake, and you can think of the Athabasca Glacier like a river that directly runs off of it. That being said, you can see the ice field up at the top. It is the thick layer of ice and snow running between the two mountains there. And you can also see that it feeds directly onto the glacier, and you can see how it cascades down in those two sort of step-like shapes there before it meets the surface of the glacier, refreezing again in the winter and forming over, becoming part of that glacial ice on the surface level of the glacier. And if you folks look ahead here, you'll realize the relevance of what I was talking about earlier, those steep roads. We've got a very steep road ahead. The road ahead has a grade of a 32%, which makes it the steepest unpaved commercially traveled road in all of North America. So it is quite steep, and we will be going down this road quite slowly to ensure that we do so safely. However, on the way down, I will be hopping off the mic just so I can ensure that I keep focus and that we get to the bottom safely. But in the meantime, feel free to sit back and enjoy the ride. Remember to keep the seat belts on as you remain seated. And I will check in with you folks again when we reach the bottom.
It's frozen maybe. Yeah. Just below. don't get to the base down. You can only get to that.
산이가 가파르네. 지금 그러니까 이런 차로 다니는 거지. 안 그랬으면 내 차로 그냥 오지. 다른 차는 몰라. 주식 금지야.
Porque a relação que derrete no gelo. E uma de gelo.
Essa baixa nós. Não, a baixa.
Alta massa que
A geleira é glacial.
é o condenso tem tudo isso aqui é uma glacial.
차안 타고
A geleira que está lá em cima, está lá em cima, eu estou montando. Lá continua.
근데 여기까지 올라오긴 쉽지 않지. 얼음을 밟을 수 없어.
얼음 밟으면 올라가는 게 있네요.
지금 얼음 밟고 저기서부터 등산해야 돼. 근데 빠지는 못 나오는 거야. 저 고랑 있잖아.
因为它们没有湿，但是因为那上面是6%。
여기서 보니까는 얼마 안 되고 가까이서 있는
All right, folks, we officially made it to the bottom of the steepest unpaved, commercially traveled road in all of North America. So congratulations, you can scratch that off your bucket list. And we are getting a little closer to the Athabasca Glacier here. And I would like to welcome you all to the Athabasca Glacier. You may be thinking it's a little too early for welcomes, maybe even premature. You may be wondering why I'm welcoming you now while we're driving on this old dirt road. However, about 2 meters beneath the road that we're driving on right now, there is a thick, dense layer of glacial ice that is protected by the dirt above. You see, the dirt and rock sitting on top of that ice, it insulates it, protecting it from the weather above and keeping it cold, ensuring that it melts at a slower rate than the rest of the ice on the surface level of the glacier. Now we call this an ice core moraine, and the ice that is at the core of this moraine is technically an extension of the glacier itself. So as of right now, we are driving on the Athabasca Glacier. So folks, we're just going to wait for the bus ahead to get through, as the road there is one-way traffic. And then we will ourselves head through. Just as there's one more bus coming here, folks, we will wait for these guys again, where it's just one-way traffic on this section of the road here. But we will be heading up onto the glacier here shortly. And when we do, I'd advise you to look around at the different colors of the ice that are on the glacier when we get there. You can see a little bit of it from here. But when we do get there, you'll notice that there is blue ice and white ice particularly that will be quite noticeable. The white ice on the surface, you'll notice that this is a little less dense than the blue ice beneath. It's a little easier to walk around on the white ice, and that blue ice is a little more dense and a little more slippery. It is glacial ice, that blue ice. It contains far less oxygen than the rest of the ice on the glacier, and so that white ice on the surface is far more oxygenated and a little less dense, easier to walk on. So when we do see that blue ice, you'll know for one it's glacial ice, and then it's a little more slippery, so if you do end up walking around on it, make sure you do take small steps. But that glacial ice is much more dense. It contains much less oxygen, only containing about 10% oxygen as opposed to the 50% that you would see in most forms of ice, like the ice that you might find in your freezer. Glacial ice essentially gets that dense because of all the weight that's weighing down on top of it from the layers of snow and ice that compile throughout the winter time. And of course, like I mentioned before, that does make it quite slippery. So when you do get out there, be sure that if you're walking around on that blue ice, you do so very carefully. So this section of road here that we're driving through now, folks, is something that we ambiguously refer to as the tire wash. And it does exactly what the namesake calls for. It washes our tires. We divert it this way on purpose, specifically so that we can keep the tires clean. And we'll keep the tires clean specifically to keep the glacier clean. You see, if you happen to accumulate a small layer of dirt on the surface level of the glacier, this will contribute to something called the albedo effect, which is when the sun's rays, as you may know, are more attracted to darker colors. So if you do have that surface level of dirt, it will attract the sun's rays, acting as sort of a dark spot on the surface of the glacier. And this will elevate the temperature of the surface level of ice. It's accelerating the melting process. Now, of course, this is something that we don't want to see happen. So we do our very best to ensure that that surface level of ice is kept as clean as possible, specifically where we do drive on it. And on either side, you may notice that there is dirt on the glacier, but this is something a little different. It's a compound called cryogonite, which is naturally occurring. And cryogonite is essentially an accumulation of rock, dirt, and debris that makes its way down off the mountain through the course of the year due to natural erosion. And as that happens, it collects into this substance that we call cryogonite, which, as I said, is naturally occurring and, of course, does happen to be the natural lifespan of any glacier. So as far as the cryogonite goes, it would be here regardless of our operations. So we just do what we can to keep the glacier as clean as possible where we do drive on it. And as for the rest of the glacier, we let it go through its natural cycle.
这边。对。这边吧，左边。上面。在哪里了？在哪里？哦，牙齿那里。
So folks, you'll notice that we are getting up to our parking spot here, and as we do, there are a couple of rules that I need to fill everyone in on. So you will see red boundary signs all the way around the perimeter of the parking spaces here, and those red boundary signs are a great indicator of where you may not go. Other than that, I would also ask that no one goes behind the buses. It can be very dangerous back there, and it's a good idea to stay in front of the buses so as to avoid getting into any blind spots. Now, the only other thing here is our turnaround time, folks. So I will double check here. I do believe our turnaround time was originally scheduled for 3:30, but that is cutting it a little short. So we'll do 3:35, which gives us a little over 20 minutes. Once the doors open, you folks can follow me right off the bus here. And from then on, just watch your step when you do get down onto the ice, and you may follow me.
Just check with the guy as we. Just check with the guy as we. What's that?
We need the backpack.
If it's not an issue, just take it. Yeah, that's it. 야, 그거 어떡하냐? 그거 내리면 물 받았는데 이거?